Chapter 33:18. He's unconscious. It's best to use the flying ship. Let's go. Even if there's an ambush, it won't be too obvious. As she spoke, she jumped onto the flying ship. Not long after, the flying ship slowly ascended in the direction of the Blue Star Immortal Sect. Flying in the clouds, the disciples who had been on tenterhooks all the way finally let out a sigh of relief. At this moment, Junju Shang, who had been unconscious for a day and a night, slowly opened his eyes. Sect Master is awake. The middle-aged man's surprised voice sounded. He looked at Junju Shang, who had opened his eyes and secretly let out a sigh of relief. After waking up, Junju Shang looked at the middle-aged man and asked, "Where is this?" "Sect Master, this is the cabin of the flying ship." "Oh, that's right, this is Miss Wanyan's flying ship. Last night, The middle-aged man told him about his encounter with Wanyan Qianhua last night. After hearing the middle-aged man's words, Junju Shang's gaze slightly moved. He closed his eyes and didn't speak. "Sect Master, last night I saw Miss Wanyan feed you a pill. I reckon that pill took effect. That's why you woke up so quickly." As he spoke, his voice paused. He looked at Junju Shang and said, "Sect Master, last night after Miss Wanyan fed you the pill, you kept grabbing her hand and didn't let go." Hearing this, Junju Shang's eyelashes trembled. He didn't speak, but slowly closed his eyes. "Elder Su, did Sect Master wake up?" The disciples outside heard him say that Sect Master woke up, so they came over to ask. "Sect Master, rest first. I'll go out and tell Miss Wanyan and the disciples so that they won't be worried." The middle-aged man said, then stood up and walked out. Outside, Wanyan Qianhua heard that Junju Shang had woken up. His hand holding the wine cup couldn't help but tighten a bit. Sect Master woke up. His spirit isn't very good. Don't disturb him. Everyone, disperse. The middle-aged man said to the disciples outside, hinting them to go to the front. At the same time, he walked to the front of the ship and came to Wanyan Qianhua. "Miss Wanyan, sect leader is awake. Do you want to go in and take a look?" The middle-aged man asked. His gaze fell on her face, and when he saw her cold gaze, he could not help but smile sheepishly. Pretend I didn't say anything, pretend I didn't say anything." He chuckled and retreated. Junju Shang was lying on the bed in the cabin. He opened his eyes. It wasn't clear what he was thinking about. He closed his eyes after a while, and fell asleep. After flying for 2 days, seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the Blue Star Immortal Sect, Wanyan Qianhua said to the middle-aged man, "Now that your sect master has woken up and is recovering, we are not far from the Blue Star Immortal Sect. Let's split up ahead." Hearing this, the middle-aged man was stunned. "Isn't Miss Wanyan also going back to the Blue Star Immortal Sect?" "How? I still have some things to do. I'm not in a hurry to go back," Wanyan Qianhua said. He turned around and did not say anything else. Instead, he controlled the ship to fly down. Seeing this, the middle-aged man hurried to the cabin of the ship. "Sect Master, Miss Wanyan said that she wants to split up with us. She won't be going to the Immortal Sect with us." "Okay," Junju Shang replied. He, who was leaning against the head of the bed, paused for a moment before standing up and putting on his clothes. Chapter 33:19. Junju Shang didn't say anything. He put on his robe and walked out of the cabin. His face was still a little pale, but it was much better than a few days ago. At this time, he walked out, and every step he took was very slow. The disciples cupped their fists and bowed when they saw him. Then, they retreated to the side. Junju Shang came to the front of the ship. He looked at Wanyan Qianhua, who was leaning on the front of the ship and looking at the sky outside. His eyes flashed. "Thank you." These two words came out of his mouth. He didn't say anything else and didn't ask anything. It was just a simple thank you. Wanyan Qianhua didn't move at all. Wanyan Qianhua didn't even look in his direction. Junju Shang raised his head and looked ahead. He said, "Since we're not on the same path, we can stop and split up." Wanyan Qianhua didn't say anything. However, the ship slowly descended. After about half an hour, the ship landed. Wanyan Qianhua, who was leaning lazily, didn't look back. She said to them, "Let's go." These three words were cold and emotionless. She didn't even look back at Junju Shang. Junju Shang looked at her, then turned around and walked out of the ship. "Miss Wanyan, take care. We'll see you at the sect." The disciples cupped their fists and said. They then walked out of the ship and stood behind Junju Shang. The middle-aged man walked over and chuckled, "Miss Wanyan, we'll meet again at the sect. Thank you for taking care of me along the way." As he spoke, he cupped his hands and bowed before getting off the flying ship. After they got out of the ship, it flew into the sky again and gradually went away. The middle-aged man looked at Junju Shang and asked carefully, "Sect leader, what happened between you and Miss Wanyan? Why didn't she look at you?" Junju Shang didn't say anything. He just put his hands behind his back and rode his sword forward. Seeing this, the others quickly followed. On the spaceship, Wanyan Qianhua took out some wine from her space. She leaned back and drank one cup after another. When the spaceship arrived outside Four Corner City, she came down from the spaceship. She put away the spaceship and walked towards the city with swaying steps. After entering the city, she randomly pulled someone and asked, "How do I get to the Feng residence?" Feng residence. The one who was stopped was a male cultivator. He had originally thought that this red-clothed woman's beauty was unparalleled, and he was looking at her with amazement. When he heard her mention the words, Feng Manor, the amazement in his eyes immediately disappeared, and he looked at her with a bit of vigilance. "Who are you? Why do you want to go to the Feng residence?" Wanyan Qianhua frowned, especially after drinking wine. He was a little unhappy. Hearing his words, he immediately grabbed his collar and lifted him up. He shouted coldly, "Didn't you hear me? How do I get to the Feng residence?" A powerful pressure came over, causing the male cultivator's face to turn pale. Not to mention speaking, he couldn't even move. Wanyan Qianhua, who had recovered, rubbed her brow. She withdrew the pressure and put the person down, saying, "I am Wanyan Qianhua. I want to go to the Feng residence. Lead the way." As soon as they heard that it was Wanyan Qianhua, the people who were paying attention to this side began to whisper. "So she is Wanyan Qianhua. I never thought that she would be this beautiful. I heard that she and Fingzhou are sworn sisters." Chapter 33:20. When Junju Shang and the others entered the city, they saw the red silhouette from afar. They saw a tall man wearing black clothes walking towards her. They didn't know what he was talking to her about. After that, the man in black clothes let go of the cultivator she was holding and helped her walk away. When Junju Shang saw the two of them leave, his eyes twitched and he lowered his head. Who is that person? Why is he helping young Miss Wanyan leave?" A disciple said as he looked at Wanyan Qianhua leaning on the black-robed man. "It seems that the relationship between the two is not ordinary. Perhaps he is young Miss Wanyan's sweetheart," another disciple said. As he spoke, his foot was stepped on and he couldn't help but cry out. He glared at the disciple next to him. "Why did you step on me?" Seeing the sect master walk forward, the middle-aged man turned around and glared at them. The disciple who had stepped on him unhappily said, "What did you say wrong? Why did you have to say that?" Could it be that you didn't know that young Miss Wanyan lived in the sect master's bamboo forest for a period of time 5 years ago? Her relationship with the sect master is not shallow. Now that you're talking about the relationship between young Miss Wanyan and that man in front of the sect master, how do you want the sect master to feel? Hearing this, the disciple was stunned. He scratched his head and said, I didn't know. When she went, I wasn't at the sect. After that, I didn't hear anyone mention it. How could I know there was such a thing? He only knew that young Miss Wanyan seemed to have some relationship with their sect. How could he have known that the relationship was like this? Enough, let's go. As they spoke, they quickly followed Jun Ju Shang and the others. On the other side, Guan Shilin helped Wanyan Qianhua back to the Feng Manor. Upon entering the manor, he called for 2 servant girls, help her to the inner courtyard to rest. As he spoke, he looked at Wanyan Qianhua, you go rest first. I'll have someone make some hangover soup for you. Wanyan Qianhua complied and walked to the courtyard with the help of the 2 servant girls. Actually, she wasn't that drunk. It was just that she wasn't in a good mood. Coupled with the fact that she was drunk, her temples hurt a little and she didn't have much energy left. The servants in the mansion were sent by the Shao family. Guan Shilin lived here, so it was more convenient for some servants to move around. Therefore, he sent someone to the kitchen to make some hangover soup for Wanyan Qianhua. Not long after Wanyan Qianhua entered the Feng Manor, Du Fan and the others arrived at the manor's entrance. Seeing the familiar place, they looked at each other and smiled. Speaking of which, we haven't been back for 5 years. Du Fan looked inside and couldn't help but sigh. These 5 years had passed so quickly. Yes. It's been 5 years and we're back. Old May's eyes narrowed as he smiled. When he thought of Fengzhou's return and the young master's return, he was filled with excitement. He wondered how the young master was doing now that 5 years had passed. Qin Axayan saw that there were people walking around the manor and said, let's go in. Before the young master returns, everything in the manor needs to be prepared. That's true. As they spoke, they walked inside. When the servant girls inside saw them, they couldn't help but be startled. Just as they were about to ask, they saw Guan Shilin walk out. Seeing them, he laughed and greeted them. Chapter 33:21. When his gaze landed on Elder May and Qin Axayan, he was slightly surprised, but he did not say anything. He only indicated for them to come in, and the group walked towards the main hall. After everyone sat down, Du Fan smiled and introduced them. Shilin, this is Elder May, and this is Qin Axayan. As he spoke, he turned to the 2 and said, this is Guan Shilin, Master's sworn brother. He has a very good relationship with Master. Hearing Du Fan's words, Elder May's eyes flashed. Du Fan said that the person in front of them was Fengzhou's sworn brother, and he also said that Guan Shilin had a very good relationship with Fengzhou. It could be seen that he was not a person that could not be ignored. At that moment, he also took him seriously and cupped his hands in greeting, Brother Guan. Greetings, Big Brother Guan. Qin Axayan also stepped forward and bowed. We're all family. No need to be so polite. As Guan Shilin spoke, he indicated for them to sit down and said, I've been here for a few days now, and I've been waiting for you all. Du Fan and Luo Yu looked at each other and smiled when they heard this, saying, as soon as we heard that you had come, we ordered our subordinates to inquire about you. Who would have thought that you would directly come to the Feng Manor? I more or less know about your situation here. That Sovereign Lord Tong Tian is indeed a difficult person to deal with. However, after 5 years, Xiao Zhou and the others should have become much stronger. Speaking to this point, Guan Shilin smiled, especially since the various large sects have been preparing to deal with Sovereign Lord Tong Tian. With this kind of help, I trust that Sovereign Lord Tong Tian will have to think twice before making a move. Right now, Master and the others have not returned yet. We can use this opportunity to make arrangements in the manor. Du Fan said. Hearing this, Guan Shilin continued, that's right, before you came, I just happened to run into Xiao Zhou's sworn sister, Wanyan Qianhua. At this time, she is also in the manor. However, I saw that she was not feeling too well, so I had her rest in the back courtyard. Oh. She's here too. When they heard this, they couldn't help but smile. Then if Master comes back, he will definitely be very happy to see you. Since Lang Hua isn't here, I can only act as the housekeeper for now. I have to send someone to inform the Xiao family and set up some formations in the mansion. You guys take a seat first. I'm going to get busy. Du Fan stood up and said to everyone. Hearing this, Old May and the rest stood up as well. We stood up as well. Let's go and help as well. We need to arrange for some people to come back. After all, it's not good for the Xiao family to move around here. Thus, they didn't sit down, but started to get busy. In the evening, when the sky was getting dark, Guan Shilin called Du Fan to the backyard and asked him about it. Du Fan, Old May's cultivation is extraordinary. How did Xiao Zhou subdue him? Guan Shilin asked the question that had been bothering him. Today, he saw that Old May's cultivation was unfathomable, and he couldn't ask in detail because there were too many people around. Now, he had the time to ask clearly. Even if you didn't come to me, I was going to come to you and tell you. Chapter 33:22. Hearing this, Guan Shilin nodded his head, I understand. Because everyone was gathered, Guan Shilin had the kitchen prepare a table full of food and wine. Tonight, they would sit down and eat a good meal together. Night fell and the manor's lights were as bright as day. Tonight, everyone in the Feng Manor gathered. This allowed the various families and factions in Xifang City to know that Fengzhou and the others who had disappeared for 5 years were about to return. However, Fengzhou and the others had not yet appeared. Today, however, some people saw that the people who had followed Fengzhou in the past had entered the city. Inside the Feng Manor, Qin Xian arrived at Wanyan Qianhua's courtyard and knocked on the door. Young Miss Wanyan, are you feeling better? Wanyan Qianhua was lying on the bed. When she heard the sound from outside, she rubbed her forehead and opened her eyes. She did not get up and instead asked, what is it? Young Miss Wanyan, I am Qin Xian. We just arrived at the Feng Manor today. Everyone is gathering in the front. Brother Guan told me to come ask if you are feeling better. Do you want to go to the front together? Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua rubbed her forehead and sat up, saying, I will go over in a bit. As she spoke, she washed her face, combed her hair and put on her outer clothes before walking out. She originally thought that Qin Xian, who had been talking outside, had already left. She never thought that when she opened the door, she would see her waiting in the courtyard. Young Miss Wanyan. Qin Xian bowed slightly. When she saw Wanyan Qianhua, she thought that she had seen her master. However, when she looked carefully, she felt that although the two were both wearing red clothes, their temperaments were different. However, it could not be denied that Wanyan Qianhua's beauty was very captivating. Wanyan Qianhua looked her over and asked, You are one of Xiao Zhou's people? Yes. She replied and retreated to the side to let her go first. Let's go. Wanyan Qianhua said and walked to the front with her. In the front yard, Guan Shilin and the others put the tables together and placed them in the middle of the yard. There were lanterns hanging around the tables, and when one looked up, they could see the bright moon. Everyone stood in small groups and chatted. Since Wanyan Qianhua had not arrived yet, they did not sit down. When they saw Wanyan Qianhua and Qin Xian out of the corner of their eyes, they smiled and said, They're here, they're here. Everyone walked towards Wanyan Qianhua and cupped their fists to salute her. Miss Wanyan, long time no see. Du Fan smiled. Looking at them, Wanyan Qianhua smiled. Yes, it's been a long time. Have a seat, she said and gestured for everyone to sit. We were just talking about how Miss Wanyan single-handedly annihilated over 1,000 demonic cultivators. How satisfying. It's already in the past. There's nothing to talk about. Wanyan Qianhua said and looked at them with a smile. You guys, on the other hand, disappeared for 5 years. Now that you've reappeared, I'm sure Xiao Jiu will be back soon. I heard from Leng Hua that Master is still in closed-door cultivation. She'll probably come back after she comes out, but I believe it won't take long. I heard from Leng Hua that if Master breaks through again, she'll break through to the Divine King Realm. Once she breaks through to the Divine King Realm, she'll be able to fight against the Sovereign of Tongtian. Du Fan said excitedly. Master and the Yama Lord's breakthroughs were unbelievably fast. In 5 years, they would break through to the Divine King Realm. No, to be exact, the Yama Lord had already broken through. Only Master was left. Chapter 33-23. I haven't been back to the sect for 5 years. Now that the sect is in danger, I have to go back and see my master. With that, Wanyan Qianhua raised his wine glass and said, Come, let's not go home until we're drunk tonight. As for tomorrow, I have to go back first. I'll come back when Xiao Jiu and the rest are back. Hearing that, everyone raised their wine glasses and said, Let's not go home until we're drunk. That night, everyone chatted and laughed as they drank. They only left when it was late at night and returned to their courtyards to rest. Meanwhile, in Danwang Valley, 3 bolts of lightning struck down from the sky. Each bolt was more powerful than the last. Hearing the rumbling of the lightning, the cultivators in the valley all came out of their cave abodes to take a look. Look! It's the young Valley Master. The young Valley Master has finally broken through to the Godly King level. I never thought that I would be able to see the young Valley Master break through to the Godly King level with my own eyes. Ha 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 ha, my life has not been in vain. The cultivators laughed excitedly as they looked at the 7-colored clouds in the originally dark sky. They watched as the night turned into day. They watched as the 7-colored clouds floated in the sky. Faintly, they could hear the sound of red-crowned cranes and heavenly music coming from the depths of the clouds. Look. That's the fire phoenix. With a phoenix cry, the fire phoenix flapped her wings and flew into the sky. She circled in the sky. Her entire body was covered in flames, and her long and gorgeous phoenix tail was hanging down from her tail. Everyone couldn't help but gasp in amazement. So beautiful. Not far from the cave abode where Fingzhou had broken through, Xianyuan Mo stood with his hands behind his back. Hao, who was dressed in a small black robe, stood beside him. The little boy looked up at the sky, his eyes full of excitement. Father, Mother is so powerful. The fire phoenix is so beautiful. Be good and listen to us. Work hard in your cultivation. You can be so powerful in the future. Xianyuan Mo said as he reached out to pat his son's head. Thinking about his son's background, a dark light flashed across his eyes. Father, how I will listen to Father and Mother's words and cultivate diligently. I want to be as powerful as you two in the future. He looked up at him. In his heart, the two of them had always been very powerful. They had always been the strongest. Xianyuan Mose looked at him and didn't say anything. No one knew what he was thinking. Father, will Mother come out after she finishes her advancement? Father, Mother has come out. Are we going to leave this place? He asked curiously. Xianyuan Mose smiled and asked, Do you want to leave this place? Hao blinked, thought for a moment, and said, I want to follow Father and Mother. Hao will go wherever Father and Mother go. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo sighed in his heart. He rubbed his head and said, It's late, go back to sleep. When you wake up, you can see your mother tomorrow. Hearing this, his eyes lit up. All right, then will Daddy also go back to sleep? You go back first, I'll go back later. He gestured and said, go. How replied before walking towards the cave abode. After How left, Dan Wang stroked his beard and walked over with a smile. That girl has finally broken through. I wonder what order God King cultivation she is now. He looked at Xianyuan Mose and asked, is there something on your mind? Chapter 33-24. Hearing this, Dan Wang's hand that was stroking his beard paused. He pondered for a moment, then said, if his parents are still alive and have the ability to protect him, then he should indeed return to his birth parents. Although he is only 6 years old, he has been intelligent since he was a child. When the time comes, you can talk to him and see what he thinks. Regarding his past, you can't hide it from him forever. We didn't want to hide it from him forever. We originally planned to tell him when we were about to leave. As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he watched the 7-colored clouds in the sky gradually disperse. The night returned to normal, and the stars shone in the sky. It's getting late. Fengjiu probably won't come out until tomorrow. You should go back and rest too. Dan Wang said, then walked away with his hands behind his back. After Dan Wang left, Xianyuan Mose also walked away and returned to his cave to rest. The next day, as soon as the sky brightened, he got up and went outside to wait for Fengjiu to come out. In the cave, Fengjiu exhaled softly, then slowly opened her eyes. The moment she opened her eyes, a faint smile appeared on her face. She had finally succeeded in becoming a divine king expert. In the past 5 years, apart from her master guiding their cultivation, he had also researched and concocted pills for advancement with her. Otherwise, she and Mose wouldn't have been able to break through to the divine king level in just 5 years. Sitting cross-legged, she released her divine sense and saw the people waiting for her outside the cave. When she saw them, the smile on her face deepened. Only then did she get up and walk out. Father, when is Mother coming out? How asked, holding Xianyuan Mose's hand. His eyes occasionally glanced towards the cave. She'll be out in a while. Xianyuan Mose said, his gaze falling on the cave. Lang Hua and the others also looked towards the cave. They couldn't hide their excitement. Master was finally coming out of seclusion. Not long after, a red figure walked out from inside and appeared in front of everyone. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw the beautiful woman in red with her hair hanging down to her hips. Mother! Hao ran over happily and threw himself at Fengjiu. Fengjiu bent down and picked him up. He smiled and said, Hao has grown taller again. Mother, Hao misses you. He intimately hugged her neck, his delicate little face flushed red. The little man buried his head in her neck, unwilling to leave. When Fengjiu heard this and saw that he was hugging him tightly, he also laughed. Mother, I miss Hao. Congratulations, Master, for successfully breaking through to the God King realm. Lang Hua and the others stepped forward and bowed respectfully as they congratulated him. When the other people in the valley saw this, they smiled and congratulated. Congratulations, young Valley Master. Congratulations, young Valley Master. Ha ha ha, little girl, not bad. Dan Wang smiled and nodded. He looked at her with satisfaction. Master. Fengjiu called out and said, if not for Master's guidance, I wouldn't have advanced so quickly. It's all because of Liang Zun that I'm where I am today. When Dan Wang heard this, he waved his hand. Sigh, this has nothing to do with me. It's all because of you, one step at a time. Then, he said to everyone, today, the valley has to celebrate. Everyone, get ready. Later, we'll dig out all the wine that little Feng brewed a few years ago to drink. Chapter 33-25. Let's go dig for wine. Let's go help in the kitchen. They all spoke excitedly. After cupping their hands, they left, leaving only the few of them there. Master, Yama Lord, let's go help, Lang Hua said. He left with Hui Lang and the others. Little master, I'll take you to see them dig for wine, Lang Shuang said. He came to Fingzhou and looked at Hao looked at his mother and then at his father. Then he said to Fingzhou, Mother, I'll go play with Aunt Shuang first. He got down from Fingzhou's arms and held Ling Shuang's hand. He looked at Xianyuanmo's and said, Father, Hao will come back later. Go. Xianyuanmo's nodded. Fingzhou came to his side and wrapped his arms around his waist. She hugged him and buried her face in his chest. She smiled and said, I've been in seclusion for more than a year. Did you miss me? Xianyuanmo's hugged her and rested his chin on her head. He smiled and said, Yes. One word was better than 1,000 words. They stood in each other's arms and didn't say anything. They just quietly enjoyed the warmth of this moment. After a long time, they let go. Xianyuanmo's held her hand and looked into the distance. He said, Now that you're out, we have to find a time to leave. Du Fan and the others sent news that the situation outside isn't very good. Especially since Sovereign Tong Tian wants to attack the big sections. The situation outside is very dangerous. 5 years have passed. I wonder how much Sovereign Tongtian's strength has improved. Fengzhou said thoughtfully. He still had the ancient fierce beasts by his side. If they fought, they wouldn't be completely overwhelmed. We can discuss this after we get out of here. What do you plan to do about Hao? Xianyuanmo's looked at her and asked. Hearing this, Fengzhou paused for a moment and said, Hao is already 6 years old. If we didn't know who his biological parents were, we wouldn't be in a hurry to tell him since he has been raised by us. But since we know his background, we should tell him before we leave Dan Wang Valley. Xianyuanmo's nodded. Yes, I think so too. 5 years have passed. I think Elder Mei will want to bring him back this time. Fengzhou smiled and said, In any case, we have raised him for 5 or 6 years. If you want to take him away from us, if his parents don't come personally, then you won't be able to take him away. She had raised her son for 5 or 6 years. How could she let anyone take him away so easily? If his parents didn't come in person, she didn't want to return their son to them. Listening to her words, Xianyuanmo's hooked his lips and smiled. That's right, we have raised our son for 5 or 6 years. How can they take him back so easily? Let's go. We'll go to the stream at the back of the mountain to watch them dig for wine. As for Hao's background, we'll tell him at night. Fengzhou said as she held his hand and led him to the back of the mountain. On this day, because Fengzhou had come out of seclusion, everyone in the valley was very happy. Everyone got busy. The valley hadn't been so happy and lively in a long time. It could be said that no one was idle from morning to evening. At night, the table was filled with food and wine. Everyone sat around and drank together. It was a harmonious scene. There were no disputes, no robberies and killings outside. There was only peace and ordinary. Chapter 33:26. Mother, look at those 2 stars. They're so bright. Hao pointed at 2 unusually bright stars in the sky. Xianyuanmo's and Fengzhou looked up and smiled at each other. Those 2 stars were the Emperor Star and the Phoenix Star. Although they were bright in the past, they were never as dazzling as tonight. If they could see that the Emperor Star and the Phoenix Star were so dazzling, others probably noticed as well. Hao, your father and I have something to tell you tonight. You have to listen carefully, Fengzhou looked at him and said seriously. Hearing this, Hao blinked. Seeing the rare seriousness on their faces, he couldn't help but sit up straight and nod seriously. Yes, How will listen carefully. Xianyuanmos and Fingzhou looked at each other and paused. In the end, they decided that she should be the one to speak. She looked at Hao who was sitting between them, and said softly, Hao we're actually not your biological parents. Hearing this, Hao who was sitting up straight, froze. His eyes widened and he looked at Fingzhou in astonishment. Mother, what did you say? How, we're not your biological parents. Fingzhou looked at his panicked expression and her heart clenched. Mother, are you drunk? Hao's eyes were filled with panic and fear. His eyes gradually turned red and a layer of mist covered them. His small hands tightly grasped her hand. Mother, are you drunk? How is your biological son? How is your biological son? As he spoke, his tears fell. His little mouth was tightly pursed, and he forced himself not to cry. It was the first time such a small person faced such a situation. For a moment, it felt as if the entire sky had collapsed. He was very panicked and helpless. A pair of hands gently stroked his head and pulled him into an embrace. Fingzhou sighed softly and said softly, Hao, don't cry. It's all right. Even if you're not our biological son, you're still our son. Feeling the warmth of his mother's embrace, feeling the gentleness from her body, his panicked heart gradually calmed down. He raised his head and hugged her tightly. His voice choked as he asked, Really? Mother, even if Hao isn't father and mother's biological son, will father and mother still want me? You're the son we've raised for 5 or 6 years. How could we not want you? As Xianyuanmos spoke, he reached out his hand to rub his hair and said, Your mother and I are telling you this because we want you to know your background. After we leave Danwang Valley this time, perhaps not long after, your birth parents will come knocking on our door. I don't want them. I only want you. Hao hurriedly said and buried himself in Fingzhou's arms. When the two saw this, they couldn't help but shake their heads and smile. Hao, don't you want to know how you became our son? Hearing this, Hao blinked his slightly red eyes. He thought for a moment and sat up straight. However, one hand was still tightly holding Fingzhou's hand. He said, I want to know. Mother, where did Hao come from? Chapter 33:27. Seeing him in a daze, Fingzhou couldn't help but laugh. Your father and I didn't have children yet, so we raised you as our own. As we raised you, you're already so big. At first, we didn't know about your background, but later, an old man came to our house. He's called Elder May. Fingzhou hugged him and told him about him bit by bit. Hao leaned in her arms and listened attentively until she finished. That's it. So, when we leave Danwang Valley in a few days, we have to tell you about your background first. Do you understand now? It's not that father and mother don't want you. Even if we tell you this, you're still our son, Fingzhou said softly. She looked at Hao, who had calmed down, with a smile in her eyes. It was indeed not easy for a 6-year-old child to calm down so quickly. Mother, after leaving Danwang Valley, Hao only wants to stay by father and mother's side. He didn't know his biological parents. Ever since he could remember, father and mother had been by his side. They taught him how to walk, how to speak, how to read, and how to cultivate. He knew that they had always doted on him, so he never doubted that he wasn't their biological son. Xianyuanmos and Fingzhou smiled and said, We'll talk about this later. It's late, go back and sleep. As they spoke, they stood up and each of them took one of his hands to send him back to his cave residence to rest. After sending him back to his cave residence, the two of them went to the hot spring pool in Danwang Valley. They planned to take a bath before going back to rest. In the middle of the night, the valley was already quiet. Only the occasional sound of insects could be heard in the air. The two of them took a bath in the hot spring. After about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, they got up and went back to their cave residence. What they didn't know was that Howler couldn't sleep that night. He couldn't sleep the whole night. His mind kept thinking about the things they told him. He digested the things they told him alone and couldn't fall asleep until dawn. In the end, he got up early, washed up, and went to sit outside his parents' cave residence alone, waiting for them to wake up. Why are you here? Early in the morning, Lenghua saw the little figure curled up into a ball and sitting in front of his master's cave. He immediately walked over to him and asked, "Uncle Hua." Howler looked up at him and then lowered his head again. He buried his head between his knees and said in a muffled voice, "Father and mother told Howler that Howler is not their biological son." Lenghua was slightly startled when he heard this, and then he smiled warmly. "Howler, do your parents treat you well?" "All right, father and mother treat Howler the best. They love Howler the most." He raised his head and said, "That's right. All these years, they've been so good to you, treating you like their own son. So what if you're not their biological son? You just need to know that they're good to you, right?" Howler thought for a moment and nodded. "Yes, mother said so too. Mother and father said that I'm still their son. Isn't that enough? No matter what, you're still their son. That won't change." Lenghua patted his head and said warmly, "You're sitting here so early in the morning. If your mother comes out and sees you, her heart will ache." Chapter 33:28. Hearing this, Lenghua smiled warmly and said, "Let's go. I'll take you to eat something." Lenghua took his hand and led him to the kitchen to see if there was anything for him to eat. As the sky gradually brightened, the first ray of sunlight shone into the valley. At the stone table in the kitchen, Lenghua sat at the table and looked at Howler's flushed face from drinking hot porridge. He couldn't help but smile. "Uncle Hua, mother said that we're leaving Danwang Valley. Will we come back in the future?" Howler put down his spoon and looked at him. He grew up here and liked the people here very much. He just didn't know if he could come back in the future. "If you want to come back in the future, let your mother bring you back to stay for a few days." Lenghua said, "However, the outside world is more exciting. Maybe you'll like it more after you go out. Is it fun outside? Father doesn't allow me to be playful. I want to cultivate." Howler blinked and asked, "Uncle Hua, are there a lot of bad people outside?" Lenghua smiled and said warmly, "There are bad people and good people. You have to learn to distinguish them yourself. Uncle Hua, tell me about the outside world." He sat up straight and looked at him with a pair of clear eyes. "Okay," he said warmly. He sat here and told him about the outside world. When it was close to noon, they were heading back and happened to meet Xianyuanmos and Fingzhou. "Father, mother." Howler trotted forward. "Howler, have you eaten?" Fingzhou rubbed his hair and asked with a smile. "Yes," he said and looked at the two of them. "Father, mother, when are we leaving?" Uncle Hua said that there are a lot of fun and delicious things outside. In the future, can Howler play enough before cultivating? Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. "Of course. When we reach our house, mother will accompany Howler to play outside and eat delicious food." "Great. Thank you, mother." He hugged her hand and smiled happily. At this moment, Fingzhou looked at Lenghua and said, "Go and get them ready. We'll leave soon." "Yes," he replied and left first. Xianyuanmos and Fingzhou brought Howler to eat first. Not long after, they came to Danwang's cave residence. "Young Valley Master, you're here." The Valley Master is inside. The two cultivators guarding the cave said and invited them in. The two of them nodded and walked inside. When they arrived, they saw Dan Wang sitting at the stone table drinking tea. Seeing that they had arrived, he gestured for them to sit down. "Are you guys leaving?" Dan Wang asked, his gaze falling on them. "Master, we're here to say goodbye." "We're preparing to leave soon," Fengjiu said and sat down with Xianyuan Mose and Hao. Dan Wang nodded. "That's good. You'll have to leave sooner or later. It's fine to go back earlier. However, when you go back this time, you should also be preparing for your wedding, right?" A smile appeared on Xianyuan Mose's face. He glanced at Fengjiu and said, "Yes, after we go back and arrange everything, we'll prepare for our wedding. When the time comes, we'll send the invitation." Chapter 33-29. Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose stood up at the same time and solemnly bowed to him. "Take care. Grandpa, Hao will come back to see you in the future," Hao said, imitating them and bowing respectfully. Good. Dan Wang smiled and nodded, gently patting him on the shoulder. "Good boy, remember to listen to your parents and cultivate hard. Grandpa, don't worry. Hao will be obedient," he promised with a serious face. Dan Wang sent them out and said, "I'm old and can't bear to part. I won't send you off. You can go on your own." "Master, take care," Fengjiu said, then left with Xianyuan Mose with Hao. They went back to their cave and simply packed up. The group went to the grassy area. Xianyuan Mose formed a seal with his hands and drew in the air. A whirlpool appeared. "Let's go." He looked at Leng Hua and the others, motioning for them to go in first. Leng Hua and Leng Shuang went in first, followed by Hui Lang and Ying Yi. Fengjiu carried Hao and Xianyuan Mose into the whirlpool together. With a flash of light, the whirlpool disappeared. Along with them, they also disappeared from Dan Wang's valley. In the evening, a purple gold spirit deer carriage sped along the mountain path. It was so fast that it looked like it was flying. However, although the purple gold spirit deer could fly, they didn't fly into the air. Instead, they ran on the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust. Leng Hua and Leng Shuang sat in the front, driving the purple gold spirit deer carriage. In the dark, Hui Lang and Ying Yi followed. Along the way, the cultivators automatically made way, not daring to block them. When a group of mercenaries saw the violet gold spirit deer carriage galloping towards them, some of them widened their eyes, while others gasped. Only the leader of the mercenaries suddenly came back to his senses. He quickly shouted in a low voice and ordered them to make way. After the spirit deer carriage flew past them, a mercenary asked, "Captain, those two are purple gold spirit deer, right? Am I seeing things? Is that really the purple gold spirit deer?" Purple gold spirit deer. Using the purple gold spirit deer to pull the carriage. Who is the person sitting inside? Purple gold spirit deer are extremely rare. It shouldn't be difficult to know the identity of the people inside the carriage. As the team members spoke, they all looked at their captain in unison. "Captain, do you know who's inside?" The mercenary leader pondered and said, "I've heard that the master of the two venerables of the Blue Star Immortal sect is Fengjiu, the ghost doctor. Back then, they offered 2 purple gold spirit deer to their master." The leader said, frowning, "It's just that the ghost doctor Fengjiu has been missing for 5 years. There's been no news of her. How could she suddenly appear? But if it's not her, then who could it be? They're heading towards Four Corner City. Maybe it's really the ghost doctor Fengjiu. Now that the various sects are gathering experts to help, they're going to fight the Sovereign of Heaven reaching. Maybe the ghost doctor Fengjiu heard the news and rushed back." Chapter 33-30. While they were discussing, the spirit deer carriage had already disappeared without a trace. Even the dust that was kicked up along the way gradually dissipated. The next morning, when Fengjiu's purple gold spirit deer carriage appeared in Four Corner City, almost all of the family clans in Four Corners City were shocked. What? Purple gold spirit deer carriage. Could it be that the ghost Dr. Fingzhou and the others have returned? Quick! Send people to ask around. See if they've returned. Every family and faction sent people out to ask around. After hearing the news, they could not sit still. They wanted to go check out the situation, but because they did not have any relations with the Feng Manor, they could not find a reason to visit. As a result, the Shao family became the target of everyone's inquiries. Shao Manor. When the head of the Shao family heard that the purple gold spirit deer carriage had appeared in Four Corners City, his first thought was that Fingzhou and the others had returned. She couldn't sit still any longer. She got someone to prepare a gift and brought her 2 sons to pay a visit. At this time, in the Feng Manor, Du Fan and the others found out that Fingzhou had returned today. They waited outside the manor early in the morning, especially Elder Mei, who was extremely excited. He opened the gates before dawn and waited outside for them to return. Ha ha ha, that's great. Xiao Jiu and the others have finally returned. I'm really looking forward to it. Guan Shilin's clear voice came from inside the manor, as he ordered Qin Axayan, tell the kitchen to prepare. Xiao Jiu and the others will definitely want to eat when they return. Prepare some dishes that they like to eat. Qin Axayan also revealed a smile and said, Big brother Guan, don't worry. The kitchen has been busy since before dawn. We're just waiting for Master and the others to return. Has the courtyard been tidied up? Guan Shilin worriedly asked. It's already been tidied up. We can move in at any time. Qin Axayan said. Then that's good. Let's go. We'll go outside and wait for them. Guan Shilin said, as he walked outside. Luo Yu and the others craned their necks and waited at the gate. When they saw the familiar purple gold spirit deer carriage slowly approaching, they immediately smiled happily. It's here, it's here. Master and the others are here. The crowd gathered outside the mansion. Even some other people were watching from a distance. Their eyes fell on the spirit deer carriage. Only when the spirit deer carriage stopped did they start to whisper. They've been gone for 5 years. I didn't expect them to come back. Yes. I thought they wouldn't come back. I didn't expect this. It's just that 5 years have passed. I wonder if their strength has become stronger. That's for sure. It's just that we don't know how strong they are. As these people were talking in low voices, they saw Leng Shuang and Leng Hua, who were sitting in front of the spirit deer carriage, getting off the carriage first. Everyone in front of the mansion's gate went up to greet them. Leng Hua, you're finally back. Leng Shuang, I haven't seen you in 5 years. You haven't changed at all. Du Fan and the others said happily. After greeting the two of them, they looked at the carriage. At this time, Leng Hua and Leng Shuang nodded to the crowd and lifted the curtain of the carriage. Yama Lord, Master, we've arrived at the gate. After the curtain of the carriage was lifted, everyone immediately saluted respectfully. Yama Lord, Master. In the carriage, the 3 people sitting inside looked outside. Xianyuan Mose got up and walked out first. Then he stood beside the carriage and held Fingzhou's hand. As for how, he was carried down by Leng Shuang. Chapter 33-31. Master. Du Fan and the others couldn't help but call out again. They were very excited. Xiao Jiu. Guan Shilin walked over from behind and looked at them happily. Xiao Jiu, Mose, long time no see. Brother. Fingzhou was happy to see him. Brother, when did you come? Are you the only one here? I've been here for a while. I'm the only one here. Come, let's go inside and talk. As Guan Shilin spoke, he looked at Xianyuan Mose and couldn't help but reach out and pat him on the shoulder. It seems that the past 5 years have been very exciting. Although he couldn't see their strength, he could clearly feel that they were much stronger than before. Xianyuanmo smiled and said, "Not bad. Little Hao, don't you recognize me?" Guan Shilin came in front of Hao, and reached out to pick him up. "The little guy is already so big." "Hao, call uncle." Fengjiu smiled and looked at Hao, indicating for him to call him uncle. "Uncle." Hao called out obediently. "Good boy." Guan Shilin rubbed his head and said with a smile. Hao blinked and looked at Guan Shilin curiously. Seeing that he didn't look like his beautiful mother at all, he couldn't help but ask curiously, "Uncle, why do you look different from my mother?" His mother was so beautiful, but his uncle looked, he seemed to be too strong. Was it because he ate too much? Because we're sworn siblings. Naturally, we look different. Guan Shilin said with a smile as he carried him inside. When Hao heard this, his heart skipped a beat. No one knew what he was thinking, but his eyes kept moving between his uncle and his mother. The more he thought about it, the brighter his eyes became. They were not blood-related siblings, just like him. They were not blood-related children, but mother treated him very well, as if he was her own child. Uncle was the same. He was not mother's blood-related elder brother, but mother treated him like a blood-related elder brother. As if he had figured something out, the little guy grinned. "Uncle, have you seen Hao before?" "Yes, when you were little, I even carried you," Guan Shilin said as they walked into the hall. Xianyuanmo and Fengjiu went to the main seats and sat down. Everyone else also sat down on the left and right. The servants walked back and forth, serving them tea and pastries before leaving. "Yama Lord, Miss, Little Master." Elder May walked forward and bowed to them, but his eyes were fixed on Hao. Seeing him, Xianyuanmo didn't say anything. He just picked up his tea and took a sip. Fengjiu pursed his lips and smiled. Hao looked at him strangely. When he saw his bald head, he seemed to have thought of something and the smile on his face disappeared. He sat quietly in Fengjiu's arms. "Elder May, it's been 5 years. I thought you would leave. I didn't expect you to be waiting here." Fengjiu sighed softly and his eyes fell on Elder May. 5 years ago, she felt that his cultivation was unfathomable. 5 years later, his cultivation had stagnated. Now, they could see through other people's cultivation with just a glance. This kind of strength and cultivation was the result of their 5 years of cultivation. Elder May heard this and lowered his head. "I've been waiting for Miss and Little Master to come back." Chapter 33-32. Her gaze fell on Du Fan's group. She saw that their cultivation levels had also increased. However, compared to Langhua's group, they could no longer compare. Thinking of how Langhua's group had been cultivating in Danwang Valley for the past few years, her gaze changed slightly. Looking at Du Fan's group, she said, "It's been hard on you these past few years." "Master, it's not been hard on us." Du Fan's group stood up and smiled as they spoke. Looking at Langhua's group, their eyes carried a trace of envy. "It's just that 5 years have passed, and our strength is no longer as strong as Langhua's group. Originally, their strength was about the same. Now, Langhua's strength was greater than theirs. They had also stayed in Danwang Valley. Thinking about it, they had not been idle for a single moment over the past 5 years. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, "Take it slow. There's no need to rush. Your strength will not stop here." In the Feng Manor's main hall, everyone was chatting. It was at this time that the sun and the sky seemed to be covered by something. At the same time, a deep and powerful voice came from the sky. "Xianyuanmo. Fengjiu. It's been 5 years. I never thought that you would dare to return." The voice was like thunder as it spread through the sky above Four Corner City. Every word carried a powerful pressure, causing the citizens of Four Corner City below to cover their heads and hide in all directions. Because the voice in the sky was like thunder, all of Four Corner City was in a state of panic. Because the sun was covered by dark clouds, the sky became dark, causing people to feel fear. Oh no! It must be that Sovereign Tong Tian knows that Fengjiu's group has returned. I never thought that after 5 years, that Sovereign Tong Tian would still keep an eye on the Feng Manor. But why was there no movement when people moved in a while ago? Today, Fengjiu's group just came back, and he found out. I just knew it. Fengjiu's group offended that Sovereign Tong Tian. He definitely won't let the matter rest. Look! As soon as they returned, Sovereign Tong Tian immediately knew. 5 years ago, he let them escape. Today, 5 years later, he definitely won't give them another chance to escape. This time, it looks like Fengjiu and the others won't be able to escape. The people of the various families and forces in Four Corner City gathered their spirit power and set up a defensive barrier to block the pressure and ear-splitting sound coming from the sky. Their hearts were beating like drums. Regarding Fengjiu's return, Sifang City was helpless. If she had not returned, perhaps Sovereign Tong Tian would not have targeted them, and they would not have been affected. He was afraid that if they fought, they would bring disaster to the people of Four Corner City. At this time, almost at the same time that the voice in the sky spread, the people of the Blue Star Immortal Sect, which was not very far from Four Corner City, also knew that Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose, who had disappeared for 5 years, had returned. However, what they did not expect was that the Sovereign Tong Tian would find out about their return after being gone for 5 years. On one hand, they were worried about Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose, and on the other hand, they were shocked by the Sovereign Tong Tian's news. It seemed that the Sovereign Tong Tian was very clear about the movements of the various large sections. However, he had not made a move. Perhaps it was because he did not put them in his eyes. Chapter 33-33. In other words, the Sovereign of the Sky-reaching sect had never taken them seriously. To be able to look down on them, it was obvious that he had the power to completely crush them. This knowledge caused their hearts to become abnormally heavy. Master and the others have returned. Within the sect, CK and Mu Axian quickly walked out of the cave and looked up at the sky covered by dark clouds. They were just discussing matters when they heard a voice come from the sky. That was the Sovereign of the Sky-reaching sect's voice. In other words, their master had returned. Let's quickly go to Four Corner City's Feng Manor to take a look. As CK spoke, she looked at Mu Axian. Let's go. Mu Axian replied. Her figure flashed and she was already moving forward. Seeing this, CK also quickly followed. The Sovereign of the Sky-reaching sect knew about their master's return. It could be seen that compared to the experts gathered in their sect, the Sovereign of the Sky-reaching sect viewed their master as a bigger thorn in his side. Who knew how strong they had become after not seeing them for 5 years? No matter what, they still had to quickly rush to Four Corner City to meet up with their master. At the same time, Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose in the Feng Manor heard the voice coming from the sky. The two of them stood up and handed Hao over to Ling Shuang to take care of before walking out. Looking up at the sky, they saw that the sun was covered by dark clouds. The dark clouds in the sky stirred like an evil dragon swinging its tail, creating a terrifying whirlwind. As the dark clouds swirled, the faint sound of thunder could be heard. At the same time, because of the Sovereign of the Sky-reaching sect's voice and the pressure he released, a powerful and intimidating pressure descended on their manor like Mount Tai. It made them feel a sense of oppression and suffocation. Xianyuan Mose saw that the pressure from above was pressing down on their manor. At that moment, his hands formed a barrier in front of him. A powerful spiritual aura surged from his hands, and a visible spiritual aura rose up with a faint layer of green light. It formed a protective barrier that protected the foam matter within the barrier. At the same time, he called out in a low voice, "Green Dragon." The deep voice sounded as if it came from ancient times. A powerful pressure with a sharp aura soared into the sky. There was a flash of green light, followed by the roar of a dragon. Roar! The green dragon soared into the sky and opened its mouth, blowing away the dark clouds that were blocking the sun. With a wave of its tail, it slapped towards the wind and clouds. With a loud bang, the wind and clouds were blown away, disappearing into the air. The dark clouds in the sky dispersed and the fierce winds died down. It was as if Sovereign Tong Tian, who was hiding in the clouds above, had also calmed down for a while. There was no movement for a long while. Just when everyone below thought that the crisis was over, they heard Sovereign Tongtian's incredulous voice again. "You're already a godly king." In the sky, the sovereign of the sky-reaching sect had left a sliver of his divine sense hidden in the clouds. Because it was only a sliver of his divine sense, even if it was scattered, it wouldn't affect him. However, he never would have thought that Xianyuan Mose, who had just advanced 5 years ago, would actually break through and become a godly king. Chapter 33-34. Sovereign Tongtian's voice rang out from the sky, and it contained a powerful aura of spiritual energy. Therefore, when he spoke, it could be said that the entire Four Corner City, and even the cultivators from the Blue Star Immortal Sect, heard him. A godly king expert. These 4 words exploded in everyone's hearts like thunder. The cultivators who originally thought that even if Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu worked together, they would not be a match for Sovereign Tong Tian felt their minds go blank when they heard these words. The shock in their hearts was like a waterfall crashing down from a high mountain, creating waves in their hearts and causing countless splashes. They were unable to calm down for a long time. In the foam manner, Elder May could not help but widen his eyes in shock when he heard the words from above. That Yalma Lord was already a godly king expert? Hiss! How was this possible? What had they done in the past 5 years to obtain such an inconceivable cultivation? In the sky, the black-robed Xianyuan Mose stood on the head of the azure dragon with his hands behind his back. He looked at the clouds with a deep gaze, and a deep voice rang out from his mouth with the pressure of a godly king expert. "Both times we fought, you hid your head and showed your tail. Now that this sovereign is here, do you dare to come out and fight me?" Hearing the challenge, everyone in Four Corners City held their breaths. He actually issued a challenge to Sovereign Tong Tian? Well, he was already in existence on the same level as Sovereign Tong Tian. Why would he not dare to fight him? However, would Sovereign Tong Tian accept his challenge? Would he dare to accept his challenge? It had to be said that at this moment, not only were the people in Four Corners City nervous, but even the various experts who had gathered at the Blue Star Immortal Sect felt their hearts thump loudly. They were so nervous that they could not breathe. If Sovereign Tong Tian accepted Xianyuan Mose's challenge, it would mean that they had nothing to do. No matter who won or lost, after an intense battle, this place would be peaceful for a short period of time. However, now that Xianyuan Mose's strength was at the level of a divine king, would Sovereign Tong Tian accept his challenge? The sky seemed to have quieted down for a moment. The atmosphere in the air became more and more gloomy, like the low pressure before a storm. That suffocating atmosphere was very frightening. Ha 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 ha. Wild and wanton laughter came from the depths of the clouds. The sound shook the air, and even the ground shook slightly. How many years has it been since someone dared to speak to me like this? Just based on the fact that you, a brat who just entered the divine king level, dared to be this arrogant. Good. This monarch accepts your challenge. This monarch wants to see if you still have the guts to speak such arrogant words when you see this monarch's true body. The voice was gloomy and filled with hostility. His words were filled with viciousness. Clearly, Although he was surprised that Xianyuanmos had managed to break through to the Divine King level in the past 5 years, he also felt that even though the other party was a Divine King, he could not be mentioned in the same breath as him. Hence, at the moment when his authority was being challenged, he gloomily accepted Xianyuanmos' challenge. Since he was looking forward to a battle with his true body, why not grant him his wish? Chapter 33-35. Hearing Xianyuanmos' voice, the sovereign of Tongtian heavily harumphed from the depths of the clouds. Good. 1 month later. At the peak of Shao Mountain, this sovereign will take your head. His voice reverberated in the air until it disappeared completely. The pressure that the sovereign of Tongtian had released also disappeared after his divine sense disappeared. In the sky, Xianyuanmos descended from the sky on an azure dragon and arrived above the Feng Manor. With a wave of his sleeve, the barrier protecting the Feng Manor was immediately removed. An azure light circled around the Feng Manor once before returning to Xianyuanmos' body. At the same time, he arrived beside Fengjiu. Fengjiu held his hand and looked at Leng Hua and Du Fan. You two take care of the manor's matters. He believed that it wouldn't be long before the Feng Manor would be bustling with people again. Yes. The two of them responded and dismissed the crowd. At this time, Fengjiu, Xianyuanmos, and Guan Shilin were sitting in the hall. Just as they were talking, they heard that the Shao family had arrived. Because of CK and his relationship with the Shao family, Fengjiu thought for a bit, then waved his sleeve and took out a few spirit fruits from his space. Leng Hua. Master. Leng Hua walked in from outside. Take these spirit fruits and give them to the Shao family. Yes. Leng Hua replied and took the spirit fruits. He put them on a tray and walked outside. Du Fan and the Shao family's head were talking outside. After the Shao family's head handed over the things, he said, then I'll be going back first. If there's anything else you need, just let me know. Patriarch Shao, you're exaggerating. Du Fan smiled and said, let me send you off. As he spoke, he made a gesture of invitation. Leng Hua came from not far away. Seeing that Du Fan was going to send him out, he called out, Patriarch Shao, please wait. The two people in front stopped and looked back. When they saw that it was Leng Hua, Master Shao hurriedly bowed respectfully. Butler Leng. Shao family head, these are a few spirit fruits from my master. Leng Hua said with a smile. He handed the tray over and lifted the red cloth on it. Under the surprised gaze of the Shao family head, he said, this fruit is a longevity fruit. It blossoms every 500 years and bears fruit every 500 years. It can increase one's lifespan and cultivation. Hearing those words, the Shao family's master was pleasantly surprised. Of course, he had heard of the longevity fruit before. That fruit was extremely precious, and every single one of them was priceless. Yet, there were actually 4 of them on the tray, and they were even gifted to him. How could he not be pleasantly surprised? Thank you, Miss Feng. Thank you. He extended his trembling hands and received the fruits. He could not hide the excitement in his heart. This was not only because of the fruits. It was also because after all these years, he had finally made Fengjiu remember him and the Shao family. Send Master Shao off. Leng Hua said to Du Fan. After nodding at Master Shao, he turned around and left. Master Shao, please. Du Fan said with a smile. Yes, yes. He hurriedly and carefully put away the 4 fruits. Only then did he follow Du Fan out of the Feng Manor and towards the Shao family. Not long after Master Shao left, 2 figures appeared in the sky. Not long after, they arrived outside the Feng Manor's gates. Du Fan, who was about to turn around and leave, smiled when he saw the 2. Sovereign CK, Sovereign Muaxin. We're here to see Master. The 2 looked at Du Fan and said. Chapter 33-36. In the hall, Guan Shilin looked at Xianyuanmos and asked, "You issued a challenge to the sovereign of the Skirich sect and agreed to meet at the peak of Mount E. How confident are you in defeating him?" Just as the sovereign of the Skirich sect had said, Xianyuanmos had just entered the Divine King realm, while the sovereign of the Skirich sect had advanced many years ago. Guan Shilin had to admit that he was a little worried about the two of them fighting. This was a battle to the death. The slightest carelessness could cost one's life. Xianyuanmos lifted his teacup and took a sip of tea. He said unhurriedly in a low voice, 70%. "Brother, don't worry. We'll have to face this battle sooner or later. Mose and I plan to prepare for our wedding once this matter is settled." Fengzhou's gaze fell on Xianyuanmos as he spoke. She hadn't even made a move when the sovereign of the Skirich sect had appeared today because she believed that Mose's current cultivation level was enough for him to face the sovereign of the Skirich sect. Moreover, it had only been a wisp of the sovereign of the Skirich sect's consciousness that had appeared today. No one would dare to provoke them in the upcoming battle in a month's time. "Master, Supremacy CK and the others are here." Lang Hua's voice rang out from outside the hall. "Let them in," Fengzhou said as he looked at the two people walking in. "Greetings, masters." CK and Mu Axian bowed respectfully. "Have a seat." Fengzhou gestured. He looked at the two of them and asked, "Why are you here?" "We saw the sovereign of the Skirich sect and wanted to rush over to take a look," CK said as he looked at Xianyuanmos and Fengzhou. He asked, "Master, are you all well?" Fengzhou smiled and said, "If we weren't well, we wouldn't be sitting here to see you." CK smiled sheepishly when he heard this. He knew it was unnecessary to ask this question. Master Xianyuan and sovereign of the Skirich sect are going to fight at the peak of Mount E. "Do you need us to prepare anything?" Mu Axian asked. Mount E had a steep terrain and its peak so high that it seemed to reach the clouds. He was a little surprised that they would choose such a place for the battle. The steeper the terrain, the more careful one had to be during a battle. "I've heard that your sect has gathered cultivators from all over the world to fight against sovereign of the sect." Xianyuanmos' deep eyes as he asked, his dark eyes on Mu. "Yes, this is the countermeasure that the suzerains of the other sects have discussed. The original plan of each sect was like this." Mu Axian simply told them about the plan of the other suzerains. Finally, he said, "Therefore, I asked Master, should we let them all cultivate in Mount G? To the Mount sect to the Mount sect. Of the other cultivators Mount of the sect, Inzes." Xianyuanmos said slowly, "When the God Kings fight, the pressure will spread and harm the weaker cultivators. If they want to go, they can only go to the foot of the mountain." "Yes, I'll report this to the sect master and ask him to make the arrangements," Mu Axian replied. "I haven't introduced you yet. This is my older brother, Guan Shilin." Fengzhou looked at Guan Shilin and smiled, "Brother, these are my and Zay's disciples, CK and Mu Axian." Guan Shilin nodded. He had been looking at the two of them since he came here. He had heard about the two of them and felt that they were quite pleasing to the eye. Chapter 33-37. You don't have to be so courteous. Guan Shilin said with a smile, "My sister is your master, but I'm not. You can just be friends with me." Hearing this, CK and Mu Axian looked at each other. They were just thinking about how they should address him. Now that he heard him say this, his heart relaxed. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for not abandoning us. Brother Guan, let's call each other brothers. Brother CK, Brother Mu." Guan Shilin cupped his hands in return and invited them to sit down. They chatted in the hall for a while. After a while, Lang Hua came in. "Master, the kitchen has prepared some food and wine. Would you like to eat now?" "Okay." Fengzhou nodded. CK and Mu Axian stood up and said, "Master, we have to go back to the Shao family." Now that there's nothing else to do here, we'll take our leave. Don't you want to stay for dinner? Fengjiu looked at them. No. They shook their heads. They knew that they had just come back and needed to gather, so they didn't want to disturb them. Let me see you out. Guan Shilin stood up and said to Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose, I'll see them out. With this, he gestured to CK and Mu Axian to leave. The two bowed slightly and walked out with Guan Shilin. On the way, the three chatted for a while. After they left, Guan Shilin turned around and walked in. Du Fan, tell the servants to put the food and wine in the shade under the tree over there. Guan Shilin pointed to a tree in the front yard and said with a smile, let's gather and eat something. Let them rest first. Okay. Du Fan responded and ordered the servants to prepare. Just as he was about to go to the kitchen to see how things were going, he saw a figure come in through the door. Old Jiang. Du Fan looked at him in surprise. He turned around and walked towards him. Why are you here? This old Jiang was the old man who had come to ask for the rank 6 origin-breaking pill. Back then, his master had him gather medicinal ingredients to exchange for a rank 6 pill. Later on, his master left, and this matter was left to him to handle. It was also because of this that when Elder Jiang gathered the medicinal ingredients and could not find anyone in the Feng Manor, he, who had received the news, contacted him. Later on, after examining the medicinal ingredients, he gave him a rank 6 origin-breaking pill. Ever since that incident, he hadn't appeared in front of them for a long time. They didn't expect him to come today. He probably heard the news of Master's return, so he came to take a look. Manager Du, when Elder Jiang saw him, he hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed, saying, I heard that the ghost doctor has returned, so I came specially to thank her. As he spoke, he added, I have been traveling outside recently and obtained a precious spirit medicine, so I wanted to give it to the ghost doctor. Hearing this, Du Fan smiled and said, since it's like this, then please come in. He gestured for him to come in and brought him to the front yard. Fengjiu, Xianyuan Mose, and Guan Shilin were sitting under a tree in the yard. Leng Shuang brought Hao over. Qi Naxian was also waiting on the side. Master, Elder Jiang said he wanted to personally come and thank you, so I invited him in. Du Fan said with a smile and turned his head slightly to look at Elder Jiang. Chapter 33-38. Seeing him, Fengjiu didn't immediately recall who he was. It wasn't until he said those words that she remembered that he was the person who had asked for the Dan back then. Her gaze swept over him, and she smiled. That 6th level Dan of the origin was exchanged with your spiritual medicine, there's no need to thank me. It's just an equal exchange. No, it was because of the ghost doctor's Dan that changed me. If it wasn't for that Dan back then, I wouldn't be alive to see the ghost doctor right now. As he spoke, he took out an item from his space and handed it to Du Fan, saying, I know that the ghost doctor likes rare and precious spiritual medicines. I obtained this when I was traveling outside, please accept it. Du Fan placed the item on the table, and retreated to the side. Fengjiu raised her eyebrows after hearing this, but didn't open the jade box. Instead, she looked at Elder Jiang and said, the Dan back then was exchanged with your spiritual medicine, if I accept your spiritual medicine now, it's a little. The ghost doctor's kindness in saving my life, how could it be repaid with a mere spiritual medicine on a list? I asked the ghost doctor to accept this spiritual medicine. I'm someone who doesn't understand alchemy, this spiritual medicine would be a waste if left with me. Only the ghost doctor can make use of its full potential. As he spoke, he bowed towards them, saying, I came today to personally thank the ghost doctor, I'll take my leave first. As he spoke, he didn't wait for Fengjiu to say anything, and hurriedly left, as if he was afraid that she wouldn't accept the spiritual medicine. Seeing him leave in a hurry, Fengjiu couldn't help but smile. She opened the jade box, saying, what kind of spiritual medicine is it? When she saw the spiritual medicine inside the jade box, her eyes couldn't help but shrink. It's actually a life-saving immortal herb. Guan Shilin took a look, and asked in astonishment, life-saving immortal herb? Used to save lives. He didn't understand spiritual medicine, and didn't know what it was used for. Fengjiu smiled and picked up the life-saving immortal herb from the box. This is indeed a life-saving immortal herb. It's very precious and can only be found by chance. What was even rarer was that due to the maintenance of the jade box, this life-saving immortal herb was still verdant and green. There was even a small lump of black soil wrapped around its roots. In other words, she could plant this spiritual herb in her space, and in the future, it would be able to display its greatest medicinal effects. With a turn of her hand, she planted the immortal herb into the medicinal field in her spatial space. Then, she put away the jade box, and said, "This elder Jiang has given me something good." That old man was right. No matter how precious an elixir is, only in your hands will it be able to unleash its full potential. Guan Shilin said with a smile. He poured them a glass of wine and said to Qin Axayan, "Go and ask the kitchen staff to serve the dishes first." "Yes." Qin Axayan responded and turned to leave. "Mother." Hao came to Fengjiu's side and leaned into his mother's embrace. "Hao, have a good rest today. Mother will take you out to play tomorrow." She picked him up and let him sit on her lap. Xianyuan Mose glanced at them, then looked at Hao, and said, "Hao, you're a boy and you're already so big. How can you let your mother carry you all the time? Sit by yourself." Chapter 33-39. Fengjiu glanced at Xianyuan Mose. She felt that he was too strict with Hao. He was just a child. It was nothing. However, since he had already said so, she didn't say anything more. She just smiled and carried Hao to a chair at the side. "Then Hao will sit here. Mother will help you get some food later." When Hao heard this, he immediately smiled happily. Yes. Hao will help mother get some food too. Hao is so obedient. Fengjiu touched his delicate little face and praised. Not far away, Elder Mei, who was helping to bring the dishes over, saw this scene and felt a little sour in his heart. The little master grew up by the side of the ghost doctor and Yama Lord and was as close as a family to them. He wondered if he would be unwilling to be close to his biological parents in the future when he met them. He had already sent a message to his master. He wondered when they would come down to take a look. Thinking of this, he put away his thoughts and walked forward with a smile. "The dishes are here, the dishes are here. They're piping hot. They've just been prepared." He placed the dishes on the table. The servants also brought the dishes over. Not long after, the table in the courtyard was filled with dishes and wine. Everyone also sat down. "This toast is to everyone." Fengjiu held the wine cup and gestured to everyone. She drank it in one gulp. Everyone also stood up and raised their cups to return the toast. As they drank, everyone started chatting. They all talked about what happened in the past 5 years. There were fewer people sitting at Fengjiu's table. At this moment, Hao was picking up a piece of meat and putting it in Fengjiu's bowl. "Mother, eat." Hao is so obedient. Fengjiu smiled and patted his head. She also picked up a piece of meat for him and said, "Hao, eat more so that your body will grow." Yes. Hao replied. He took 2 mouthfuls of food and looked at Xianyuan Mose and Guan Shilin. Thus, the little guy also picked up some food for them. "Father, eat." "Uncle, meat." Xianyuan Mose saw him reach his hand over, so he picked up the bowl and took the food. Only then did he say, "And sit down and eat." "Little Hao, you're much more obedient than the little rascal at Uncle's house," Guan Shilin said with a smile. He picked up his bowl and took the food that Hao put in his bowl. At the same time, he also gave him a drumstick. Hearing this, Hao blinked. Uncle has a rascal in his family. Fengjiu also looked at him and asked with a smile, Brother, I haven't asked you yet. How many children do you have now? He and Yi Jing had been married for several years. If they had one child each year, looking at Fengjiu's expression, Guan Shilin knew what she was thinking. He coughed lightly and said with a smile, Look at what you're asking. What do you mean by how many children we have now? Your sister-in-law and I only have one son now. He's only 4 years old and he's always so naughty. Fengjiu could not help but laugh. Only one. I thought you would have 2 or 3. We were thinking of waiting for the child to grow up and have another one. We can't take care of one. Guan Shilin grinned. Thinking of his wife and son at home, the happy smile on his face naturally overflowed. Xianyuan Mose, who was listening at the side, had a slightly deep look in his eyes. Especially when Fengjiu said that he thought Guan Shilin would have 2 or 3 children, he could not help but think, when he and Audiobook get married in the future, would they have 2 children in 3 years? Or 3 in 4 years? Or would they only have 1 child and wait for the child to grow up? Chapter 33-40. As Fengjiu and Guan Shilin spoke, they seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, they looked at Xianyuan Mose and asked, When we get married, will we get married here? Or will we go back? Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose smiled and said, Do you want to go back or do you want to do it here? What did you originally plan to do? Fengjiu looked at him and asked. I originally wanted to hold a grand wedding here and bring my parents and relatives over. However, we can also go back to the Phoenix dynasty. You can also get married from home. It depends on what you like. As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he thought to himself that when they got married, there were still many things that needed to be taken care of. Even after the battle with the sovereign of Tongtian was over, there were still many things that needed to be taken care of. Especially since he had to personally prepare the betrothal gifts for her. He wanted the wedding to be grand, so there were even more things that needed to be prepared. As for where they would get married, he felt that the most important thing was still her decision. Hearing this, Fengjiu's heart warmed. She smiled until her eyes narrowed and her face was filled with joy. It's too far to bring them over. Also, they're already used to a peaceful life. Rather than rushing all the way, why don't we go back and get married? I'll get married from home. That's even better. After all, that was where she grew up. Getting married from the Phoenix dynasty's Feng Manor was the most suitable place. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose nodded, All right, we'll do as you say. After the battle at Shao Mountain is over, we'll have someone pick an auspicious day. She replied with a smile. Come. Let's eat. Guan Shilin laughed loudly. Thinking that they were finally going to pick a day to get married, he was very happy. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, he ordered the servants in the manor to pack their things. Aside from Du Fan and the others, Fengjiu and the others went to rest first, the next morning, in the Feng Manor. Hao blinked and looked at the tattered beggar's clothes. He tilted his head and asked his mother, Mother, why do we have to dress like this when we go out to play? Because his mother promised him yesterday that she would take him out to play today, he got up early and picked out his favorite set of clothes. However, when he arrived at his mother's place, the clean clothes on his body were taken off and changed into the ragged clothes of a beggar that had been washed until it was white. He was only 5 or 6 years old, so he couldn't help but wonder. Did Dan Wang have to dress like this when he went shopping outside the valley? Fengjiu helped him put on his clothes and messed up his neatly combed hair. Then, he put on some simple makeup on his fair and delicate face. His fair skin became dark, and the simple makeup made it impossible to see his original appearance. That's about it. Fengjiu nodded with satisfaction. Mother, how do I go shopping like this? How blinked and looked at her in confusion. Feng Zhou's lips curled into a smile as she said, Mother will take you shopping and out to play. We're not going to sit in a spirit deer carriage and go out dressed to the nines. She reached out and gently flicked his forehead as she said, You're new to the world. Mother will teach you how to see the world. Hao didn't really understand, but he knew that his mother wouldn't harm him. Thus, he listened to her and did as she said. Pfft. Chapter 33:41. Xiao Zhou, why did you make Hao look like a little beggar? You're not thinking of letting him go out like this, are you? Guan Shilin walked in, took a chair, and sat at the side. Seeing Hao's confused look, he couldn't help but shake his head inwardly. Although Hao was smart, a 5 or 6-year-old child like him probably wouldn't be able to take it after a while. Uncle, Hao called out and then looked at his mother. Feng Zhou patted Hao's messy hair, smiled, and said to Guan Shilin, only by letting him be at the lowest level can he see things that those at the top can't. Training has to start from a young age. Hao has been with us for all these years, and Zaiku and I have not spoiled him. I think he should get used to it very quickly. As she spoke, she squatted down and looked at Hao, saying, Hao, Mother wants to see if you can survive by yourself when you're alone. So, I'll give you 10 days. In these 10 days, you can't use anything in your space. The only thing you can use is the dagger tied to your calf. You have to find a way to survive without anything. You have to learn how to resolve crises by yourself. You have to find food to fill your stomach. But remember one thing, if you have good intentions, you can't do evil. In these 10 days, you have to live by yourself in Xifang City. You can't tell anyone that you're my son. You can only exist as a little beggar. You can only come home after 10 days. Can you do it? Feng Zhou looked at the stunned Hao and asked softly. Hearing her words, Hao thought for a moment and nodded, yes, Hao can do it. He thought that 10 days should not be difficult. It could only be said that the little guy had never tried living alone and thought too simply of things. Okay, then Mother will have someone send you out. She touched his head and smiled, then called out to the outside, Leng Hua. Master. Leng Hua walked in from outside. Send Hao out of the residence, find a place to put him down, and come back. Feng Zhou ordered. Yes. Leng Hua responded. He went forward to pick up Hao and walked out. At this moment, Hao who was being carried, seemed to have just regained his senses. He couldn't help but ask, Mother, what if Hao misses you? Feng Zhou smiles faintly, then just keep it in your heart. When you come back, Mother will prepare something delicious for you. All right. He replied with a smile and allowed Leng Hua to carry him away, silently leaving the Feng manor. Guan Shilin was stunned as he watched the child being sent out of the residence. He said, Xiao Zhou, are you really not worried about letting a child like him stay outside for 10 days? Nothing will happen, right? Feng Zhou walked out and stood in the courtyard, saying, I already had Luo Yu secretly follow him. In these 10 days, with him watching over him, nothing will happen. As she spoke, she sighed, Brother, Hao's background is not simple. The dangers he will face in the future will not be any less than if he were by our side. There will come a day when he will return to his birth parents' side. If we let him go back, we won't be by his side to protect him. We can only teach him how to recognize people and adapt accordingly. Only like this can he survive the dangers in the future. Chapter 33:42. Brother, I haven't sparred with you in a long time. Let's go to the back of the mountain, shall we? Feng Zhou said with a smile. Sparring with you? Guan Shilin shook his head and said with a smile, You are now a godly king expert. Wouldn't I be looking for trouble if I fought with you? No, no. I originally wanted to accompany you out for a walk. Since you've sent out, I'll go find Du Fan and the others to spar with. As he spoke, he walked out. If you want to spar, go spar with Mose. You'll be evenly matched if you two spar. Seeing Guan Shilin leave the courtyard in the blink of an eye, Fingzhou couldn't help but shake her head and laugh. Really, even if it's just sparring, I won't go all out. As she spoke, she walked out, planning to talk to Elder May about On the other side, in an alley in Four Corner City, Linghua put her down and said, I'll leave you here. Your mother wants you to train in Four Corner City. For the next 10 days, you'll stay in this city. As for where you stay, that's up to you. Linghua looked at who was blinking at him. He paused for a moment, then took out 2 steamed buns wrapped in paper from his space and put them in his hands. He said gently, You haven't eaten anything this morning, right? Have a steamed bun to fill your stomach first. As for your next meal, you'll have to figure it out yourself. Thank you, Uncle Hua. He took the steamed bun and thanked him. Then I'll go now. Be careful and don't trust strangers so easily. Linghua patted his head and left in a flash. After he left, he was the only one left in the alley with 2 steamed buns. He thought for a moment, then walked to the side and sat down. He picked up one of the steamed buns and ate it, then put the other one away and stuffed it into his clothes. He ate the steamed buns without water or porridge. This made it difficult for him, who was used to eating good food, to swallow. The more he ate, the slower he became. In the end, he took the remaining half of the steamed bun and walked out of the alley. Steamed buns. Freshly baked steamed meat buns. How's eyes lit up when he heard the hawker's voice. Meat bun. Meat buns were much more delicious than steamed buns. There was meat inside the meat buns. Unknowingly, he walked with his short legs to the stall selling meat buns. Looking at the steaming meat buns on the rack, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He had just come out, so why did the meat buns smell so fragrant? Could it be that the things outside the mansion were more fragrant? Go, go, go. Where did this little beggar come from? Go, go, go. Don't get in the way of my business this early in the morning. When the peddler saw a dirty little beggar standing in front of him, he immediately came forward to chase him away. Howard was pushed to the side by him. He stood in the corner and watched. He saw the fierce-looking hawker greet the customers who came forward to buy buns with a smile in the blink of an eye. Although he was young, he was smart. Moreover, he had learned a lot from Fengzhou and Xianyuan Mo's. When he saw the difference in treatment between the hawker's front and back, he instantly understood the crux of the matter. He was a little beggar. He couldn't afford to buy the meat buns, so there was no profit for the hawker. Therefore, he treated them with a nasty face. The hawker greeted the customers with a smile because they bought his buns and he could make money. That was why he was so polite to them. Chapter 33-43. Would it be fine as long as he didn't starve and could survive for the next 10 days? If that was the case, it shouldn't be difficult, right? After thinking about it, he walked along the main street. After living in the valley for a few years, it was his first time walking the main street in the city. Everywhere looked new and interesting. However, as soon as he approached the places where people were doing business, he was chased away. Perhaps it was because he was young, a little beggar, and a little beggar who wandered around the city alone. Therefore, 2 men in the streets and alleys of the city had their eyes on him. Seeing the little beggar walk past in front of them, the 2 men signaled with their eyes and quietly followed him. Howard, who was still looking at the interesting things on the main street, didn't know that he was being watched until he came to a corner and a man came forward to stop him. Little brother, why are you alone? Howard stopped and looked at the shifty-looking man in front of him. He couldn't help but frown. Get out of my way. He didn't know him. Little brother, you haven't eaten yet, right? Look, I have a roasted chicken leg. Here, eat it. The man took out a chicken leg wrapped in oil paper and handed it to him. Although he hadn't eaten anything else in the morning and his stomach was growling when he smelled the aroma of the chicken leg, he still shook his head. No need, I've eaten. His mother said that one who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. This person must be a bad person. Instinctively, he stared at him defensively and even took a step back. However, who knew that a gunny sack would suddenly be put over him? Then, he only felt a pain in his neck and lost consciousness. Go, go, go. The two men saw that there was no one around the corner and immediately carried him away. A child in a gunny sack who was unconscious and motionless naturally wouldn't attract the attention of others. Even if they did, they would only think that they were carrying goods. However, Luo Yu, who was watching from the dark, saw this and a chill flashed through his eyes. He quietly followed them and wanted to see how Hao would deal with it. After all, his master had instructed him not to make a move unless it was absolutely necessary, and to let him try to solve it himself. At this time, Wanyan Qianhua had just arrived at Four Corner City. She, who was in the sect, had heard that Fengjiu and the others had returned. She should have come yesterday, but she was delayed by some matters, so she came early this morning. Walking along the main street of the city, she suddenly smelled the fragrance of braised meat. She wanted to buy some braised meat and go to the Feng Manor to find Fengjiu to drink some wine. Thus, she turned around and went in the direction of the fragrance. Putting away the braised meat she had bought into her space, she prepared to go to the Feng Manor. However, she saw a figure that could not be considered unfamiliar silently pass by. It did not startle the people on the street in the slightest. Isn't that Xiaozhou's man? Who is he following? Wanyan Qianhua murmured softly and followed him to take a look. Luo Yu followed the two men to the slums. He concealed his aura and hid in a big tree as he watched the two men bring Hao into a dilapidated house. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something. A fierce look flashed across his eyes as he instantly attacked behind him. Wanyan Qianhua was startled and instinctively raised her hand to block his attack. At the same time, she said, "It's me, Wanyan Qianhua." When he saw the person in front of him, Luo Yu stopped his attack. He was startled and asked, "Young Miss Wanyan. Why is it you? Why are you here?" Chapter 33-44. Seeing that it was her, Luo Yu relaxed and said, "I was ordered by Master to secretly guard Little Master." He briefly told her about what his master had told him. Finally, he said, "Because the young master was captured by two men in a sack and brought here, I followed him. I didn't expect to be noticed by Miss Wanyan. With his current cultivation, ordinary people wouldn't be able to discover him." However, when he looked at Wanyan Qianhua in front of him and thought of the rumors about her in the past 5 years, he felt relieved. Her cultivation wasn't considered weak, so it was normal for her to be stronger than him now. Hearing Luo Yu's words, Wanyan Qianhua chuckled. "Your master is really different from ordinary people. That child is only 5 or 6 years old, yet she is willing to let him out to suffer. Master is doing it for little master's sake." As Luo Yu spoke, his gaze shifted from her to the house in front of them. Because the house here was more dilapidated and he was standing on a high tree, he could see the scene in the house's courtyard. He stood guard here. Seeing that Wanyan Qianhua didn't leave, he couldn't help but ask, "Miss Wanyan, are you going to the residence?" "It's fine. It won't be too late to go after I see what a Jewish child is like." She found a place to sit down, her red dress hidden among the lush leaves. Hearing her words, Luo Yu didn't speak again. Instead, he looked at the scene in the courtyard in front of them. In the dilapidated courtyard, a man put the gunny sack on the ground. Another man beside him shouted, "Hurry up and let the little demon out, lest he suffocates to death." Don't worry, he won't suffocate to death. This gunny sack can ventilate. The other man said disapprovingly. After catching his breath, he bent down to untie the gunny sack and dragged the child out. This brat is still unconscious. The man kicked with his foot. Bring him inside first. We'll talk when he wakes up. As the other man spoke, he picked up from the ground and walked inside. Felt like he was thrown onto a hard bed. He didn't open his eyes and maintained his calm breathing. He listened to their conversation as they closed the door. When the room was quiet, he opened his eyes and sat up. He was captured by bad people. He blinked his eyes and pursed his lips. He wasn't worried about his situation. Instead, he was worried that if his mother and father knew that he was captured by bad people, would they be disappointed in him? Thinking of this, he started to think about it. He looked around the room. He was looking for an escape route. He estimated the strength of the two people and his chances of escaping. Escape? Could he escape? His mother had told him that he had to think twice when encountering problems. Running away was the last resort. He should not think about running away unless it was absolutely necessary. He had to learn how to solve problems. His parents had taught him a lot of things, and with his cultivation, he reckoned that as long as he was careful and not careless, he would be able to deal with those two bad guys. But, he'll just wait and see. Why did they capture him and bring him here? Were they going to sell him? Thinking of this, he lay on the bed and continued to pretend to be unconscious while listening to the sounds outside. After a long time, the sounds outside gradually became lively, and from the sound of it, it seemed to be the voices of some children. Chapter 33:45. Brat. That kick wasn't light, and it hurt so much that he opened his eyes. As soon as he opened his eyes, he was lifted up and dragged outside. He patted that person's hand with a panicked look. What are you doing? Let me go. TSK. Brat, you'd better be obedient since you're in our hands. Otherwise, I'll break your legs. That man swung his hand and threw to the ground. Only then did see that there were 11 little beggars standing in this shabby little courtyard. Some looked 1 or 2 years older than him, and some looked even younger than him. They were all wearing tattered clothes and had messy hair. They were all thin and dry as if they could not eat their fill. At this moment, these little beggars looked at him and then curled up into a ball to look at the two men. There was a trace of cowardice and fear between their brows. Who was sitting on the ground, glanced at those beggars and then looked at the two men. Why did you capture me? He was young and had never experienced such things. He did not know why these two men had captured him and gathered him together with these beggars. He originally thought that they wanted to sell him, but it did not seem like it. The two men glanced at him and then looked at the beggars. Where's the money you begged today? Take it out. As he spoke, a whip appeared in his hand. Looking at that whip, fear appeared in the eyes of those little beggars. They hurriedly took out all the money in their bags. Some even took out a steamed bun that they begged for and placed it in front of them. Looked on in confusion. Suddenly, he saw that the man with the whip suddenly whipped the youngest beggar fiercely. He scolded fiercely, "You're the least again. I think you don't want to live anymore." Whoosh. Slap. Wah. Pain, pain. Woo. Woo woo, don't hit me, don't hit me. That little beggar curled up into a ball and cried. From the sound of it, it was a girl. However, that man did not stop because the little beggar was a girl, nor did he show mercy because the little girl looked to be 5 or 6 years old. On the contrary, every lash of the whip carried a hidden force. It whooshed out and landed on the little girl's curled-up body. Every lash of the whip tore open the little girl's skin and flesh. Was stunned by the scene in front of him. He stared at the scene with his eyes wide open. It was only when he saw that the little girl had fallen did he suddenly recover. "Stop it! Stop it!" he shouted angrily, and without a second thought, he rushed forward and stood in front of the little girl. Her hands were tightly clenched into fists in anger, and they were trembling slightly. Her little face, which couldn't be seen clearly, was tense, and her eyes were fixed on the man. Her anger was obvious. "Ha! This little brat dares to stand up. I wanted to teach you a lesson later, but it looks like you're itching for a beating." The man looked at the little beggar who rushed forward and could not help but laugh coldly. He was just a little brat. He could not even protect himself when he did not understand the situation. How could he protect others? It was a good opportunity to teach him a lesson and make him obedient. Chapter 33:46. On a tree not far away, Luo Yu's eyes were full of murderous intent as he watched the scene in the courtyard. He resisted the urge to attack. At this moment, Wanyan Qianhua's voice came from behind. "What's the hurry? Keep watching. This kid is not a weakling," Wanyan Qianhua said as she supported her chin with one hand and watched the scene in the courtyard. Her beautiful eyes flashed slightly, and no one knew what she was thinking. She looked at Hao with some admiration. Of course, Luo Yu was anxious. That was Hao. His master and the Yama Lord had never hit him. If he was whipped by these two people, how could he go back and face his master? However, in the next moment, his anxious and worried expression was replaced by astonishment. Hao gritted his teeth and looked angrily at the man who was whipping him. The anger in his heart reached the extreme, so much so that in the next moment, the spiritual aura hidden in his body surged. The small figure carried a surge of spiritual aura and fiercely slammed into the man. Even though he was small, the impact was not light. Ah! The man who whipped out the whip was shocked and his whole body was sent flying. However, in the next moment, his whip was also snatched away. Then, a whip containing spiritual aura landed on his body with a snap. Hiss! Ah! Little brat, you're courting death. The man sucked in a breath of cold air and cursed. His body fell to the ground with a loud bang because of the impact and the whip. The other man standing at the side was stunned. When he came back to his senses, he strode forward and waved his hand to slap Hao. Brat! You've got guts. My parents couldn't bear to hit me, but you dare to kick me. Hao's childish voice was filled with coldness and anger. He no longer hid his strength and directly whipped the two of them. Who asked you to kick me? Who asked you to be the bad guys? Whoosh! Whoosh! Paw paw! Ah! Every time the whip fell, the two men's flesh would split open and they would scream in pain. The two men tried to resist, but in the end, they couldn't even find a chance to fight back. They had no choice but to scream and beg for mercy. Don't hit us, we know we were wrong. The two of them curled up and begged for mercy. At the same time, they secretly glanced at the child holding the whip. Their hearts were filled with shock. They did not expect that this inconspicuous little brat was already a cultivator. Moreover, he was an immortal cultivator who could hide his cultivation level. This child must have some treasures on him. Thinking of this, the two of them cried and begged, "We really know that we were wrong. We won't dare to do it again. Really, we will let those little beggars go. We won't do this again." Hao looked at the wounds on their bodies and begged and cried as he spoke. For a moment, he could not make up his mind. He thought for a moment and did not continue to hit them. Instead, he used his childish voice to threaten them, "If you continue to be bad guys, I will definitely not let you off. No, we will definitely not be bad guys again." The two of them looked at each other and hurriedly said, Seeing this, Heartwarming turned to look at the little beggar who was curled up in a ball. He walked forward and was about to see how she was doing when the two men behind him took out their knives and fiercely slashed at the little brat whose back was facing them. Chapter 33:47. The two swords reflected the cold light of the sun as they slashed at him. It was a feeling of approaching death, and it made his hair stand on end. He had been trained by his parents for many years, so in this dangerous moment, his body reacted faster than his brain. The spiritual power in his body surged in an instant, and he squatted down at the same time. He reached into his calf with one hand and pulled out the dagger hidden there. Then, he stabbed the dagger from top to bottom into the feet of the two men. The dagger pierced through the man's boots and into his flesh. It seemed that it had even broken the bones of his feet. Heartwarming's figure had already dashed past the two men at the same time. He was not even at the man's waist when he suddenly jumped up and sat on the man's shoulder. He covered the man's eyes with one hand and slit the man's neck with the other hand holding the dagger. "I'll kill you." The other man saw that the man had died with his eyes wide open and slashed at Heartwarming. However, Heartwarming nimbly dodged and stabbed the man's waist with the dagger in his hand. Hiss! The man let out a blood-curdling scream. Due to the injury on his waist, he instinctively bent down. But at this moment, a cold gleam of light flashed in front of his eyes, and he saw a dagger piercing his heart. The man let out a muffled groan as his eyes stared fixedly at the brat in front of him. Even at the moment of his death, he still did not understand how they had fallen into this brat's hands. When Heartwarming pulled out the dagger, a column of blood splashed out and sprayed Heartwarming's face. He stared blankly at his own hand that was holding the dagger, and at the person who had fallen in front of him. He killed someone. He actually killed someone. For a moment, fear, panic, and helplessness surged in his heart. He did not want to kill anyone, and he had never killed anyone before. He only reacted instinctively when danger came. Those attacks and those moves were all taught by his mother. However, before he even realized it, he had already killed those two people. He stood there in a daze and stared blankly at the two corpses on the ground. He had thought that after beating them up, he would let them go as long as they did not do bad things again. He did not want to kill them, but they wanted to kill him. In his mind, he remembered what his mother had taught him. His mother had said, "Some people should not be merciful when they deserve to be killed. Don't give them a chance to kill you. Be decisive and cut off all future troubles." He thought that his mother was right. He had not done this properly. He had been careless. If not for his body's instinctive reaction, he would have been the one dead. Thinking of this, he gradually calmed down. Looking at the two corpses, he was no longer afraid. He walked forward and took all the valuables from their bodies. His mother had said that this was a spoil of war. This was his spoil of war. After stuffing the things into his clothes, he quickly walked to the little beggar's side. However, when he wanted to help her up, the little beggar shrank back and kept retreating, looking at him with a face full of fear. Heartwarming was stunned when he saw the fear in her eyes. He had saved her. Why was she afraid of him? He was young and did not understand. Hence, he thought for a moment and said, "They are dead. They will not hit you again." Chapter 33:48. The human heart was the most difficult thing in the world to understand. Even an old monster that had lived for hundreds of years might not be able to see through it, much less Heartwarming, who was only 5 or 6 years old. At such a young age, he pursed his lips and silently glanced at the beggars. With a dark expression, he said to them, "Go dig 2 holes in the back and bury them." Seeing that they were all standing there without moving, he naturally copied his father and put his hands behind his back. Pretending to be a little adult, he coldly shouted, "What are you still standing there for? Didn't you hear what I said? Being shouted at like this and thinking about how this child who was even shorter than them had just killed the two men in front of them, they were shocked and instinctively replied, "Yes, yes." They quickly went forward and hurriedly dragged the two corpses to the back. They then began to dig two deep holes and buried the two men. Not far away, Wanyan Qianhua gently laughed. This kid's aura is 70% like Immerse's. I estimate that if this continues, he will be the next king of hell when he grows up. At this moment, Luo Yu was grinning. His original worries were finally put to rest. Sure enough, Hao did not disappoint his master and the Yama Lord. If his master knew, he would definitely be very happy, right? Young Miss Wanyan, it's already getting late. Luo Yu looked at her with a smile. Wanyan Qianhua glanced at him and said with a smile, "Enough. Even if you don't chase me away, I will leave. I have no interest in staying here all night." As Wanyan Qianhua spoke, she waved her sleeve. In the next moment, her figure flashed and she headed in the direction of the Feng Manor. Watching her leave, Luo Yu smiled. He knew that there was no need for him to say anything. Wanyan Qianhua would tell his master about what she had seen. Thinking of this, his mood improved. He could not help but hum a little tune as he sat in the tree and kept watch. Those two people were already dead. What happened next would depend on what Hao did. Night fell. In the shabby room, Hao looked at the beggars and thought for a bit before asking, "Do you have a home?" The beggars looked at each other and shook their heads. "We are all orphans." If they had a home, they would not have been caught by those two people to help them earn money. Hearing them say that they were orphans, Hao's small brow furrowed. "Those two people are dead. You can go wherever you want. But we don't know where to go. Also, we will starve to death." The younger beggars said this. Hearing this, Hao thought, "Hao's right." The little beggars listened to him and didn't say anything. They just lowered their heads slightly. The youngest girl among them looked up at Hao timidly and asked, Then will you hit us?" As Hao spoke, he thought for a bit then added, "But you must all listen to me. As long as you are obedient, I will guarantee that you will have food to eat." "Okay." Everyone agreed. Just like that, the matter was settled. Chapter 33-49. Hearing Wanyan Qianhua tell her about Hao's situation outside today, Fengzhou smiled. "That's good too. This child has been living in seclusion with us and has almost never come into contact with the outside world. I just want him to see the outside world. He will only understand if he experiences it himself. He is young, but I don't think you need to worry. That child is smart." Wanyan Qianhua played with her hair and leaned lazily on the table. "Sister, you don't know. Hao might leave us soon." Fengzhou sighed softly when she mentioned this. Her voice was filled with reluctance. Wanyan Qianhua raised her voice with a hint of charm. "What's going on? Hao's biological parents are still here. If I'm not wrong, they will come to take him back soon." She poured a cup of wine and took a sip. "You can bear to return him to them?" Wanyan Qianhua glanced at her and said, "So what if they are his biological parents? Didn't you pick him up because he was thrown away? Now that he is so big, you want to take him back when he is white and fat?" Fengzhou shook her head and sighed softly. "So what if I can't bear to? His biological parents are still here, and it is said that they were forced to do so. Now that they have found him, I can't force him to stay." "Who are his parents? How do you know he is here?" Wanyan Qianhua asked. Fengzhou looked at her and said slowly, "Xuanwu Immortal." "Xuanwu Immortal?" Wanyan Qianhua was stunned. She, who was leaning on the table as if she had no bones, couldn't help but sit up straight when she heard these words. She said with a serious expression, "You are saying that your son is Xuanwu immortal son?" "Yes." Fengjiu replied, "Isn't there a bald old man in my residence? His name is Elder Mei, and he came here for how, He's been here for 5 years, and he's been with Du Fan and the others for the past 5 years. Now that we're back and Hao has grown up, his biological parents will naturally come to visit soon." TSK, I didn't expect this. Wanyan Qinhua's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, "Your son is also a person with heaven-defying luck. You said that you saved him when his life was hanging by a thread. After you brought him back, you took him as your son and raised him by your side for 5 or 6 years. It's already amazing that he's your son. I didn't expect him to be the son of Xuanwu Immortal. Status doesn't bring any benefits." Fengjiu sighed and said, "If he was an ordinary child, he wouldn't have learned those things so early. However, his status forced him to adapt and learn those things." Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua seemed to have sensed something. The smile on her face disappeared. No one knew what she thought of, but she said slowly, "Yes. Sometimes, a good family background isn't a good thing. Only people like them knew that a good background and a good identity often meant that the responsibility on their shoulders was heavier. The things they had to learn and the things they had to bear were also more than ordinary people." The two drank quietly. No one in the courtyard disturbed them. After a while, Fengjiu looked at her and asked, "Sister, how are you in Zhenjishang?" Chapter 3350. Hearing this, Wanyan Qinhua's eyes flashed. She poured another cup of wine and said, "We had nothing to do with each other 5 years ago." Then she chuckled and said, "Ha. You should be saying that we never had anything to do with each other. That person never wanted to have anything to do with her. She was the only one who was stubborn." Hearing this and looking at her expression, Fengjiu was slightly surprised. In her opinion, although her sisters said that they had nothing to do with each other, it didn't seem to be the case. Back then, when she first met her elder sister, she admired her from the bottom of her heart. She was so similar to her elder sister, so she naturally knew that her elder sister's standards were not low. Otherwise, she would not have been single for so many years. But she didn't expect that when she came to the upper world from the lower world, she met someone who moved her heart. She actually abandoned her pride to pursue love. What she didn't expect was that the person she fell in love with was the leader of the Xiaoyao school. It was said that the leader of the Xiaoyao school was hundreds of years old, Jun Ju Shang. Although age was not the focus of attention in the cultivation world, and there were many experts or big clans who had young and beautiful female cultivators by their side, she did not expect that her elder sister would fall in love with a man who was already hundreds of years old. When she heard her sister mention Jun Ju Shang, she wanted to meet him. She was curious from the bottom of her heart. A man who could move her sister, how outstanding would he be? She drank wine and thought about this. Seeing her sister finish one cup of wine after another, she couldn't help but chuckle and say, "Sister, it's easy to get drunk drinking like this." "It's good to get drunk," Wanyan Qianhua said. She drank another cup of wine and said, "Ah Joe, tell me, why doesn't he like me?" No matter where she went, Wanyan Qianhua was dazzling. Many young masters from big clans and sects admired her. But the person she loved treated her like dirt. Fengjiu supported her chin with one hand and looked at her without saying anything. After a while, she smiled and said, "Sister, I'll give you some of my treasured wine." As she spoke, she took out a bottle of wine from her space and poured her a cup. "Sister, have a taste." Wanyan Qianhua drank it in one gulp. After it entered her mouth, she glanced at Fengjiu. Her beautiful eyes were charming and blurred. "Immortal drunken wine. Hee hee, it's the drunken immortal. Does it taste better after the modification?" Fengjiu said with a smile. "Are you trying to get me drunk?" Wanyan Qianhua said as he poured himself another cup of wine. It's nothing. I just wanted to let you try my improved immortal drunken wine. Fengjiu smiled embarrassedly. How many cups do you think I'll get drunk? Wanyan Qianhua asked and drank the third cup. Just as he was about to pour another cup, his eyes started to shake. Fengjiu pursed her lips and smiled. No matter how strong you are, you must be drunk after 3 cups. Otherwise, how could it be said that it was improved? She smiled and looked at Wanyan Qianhua, who was drunk and lying on the table, and called out to the outside. Who's outside? Master. Qi Naxian and Ling Shuang came in. Help her back to her room to rest. Tell people not to disturb her and let her have a good sleep. Fengjiu said. He stood up and brushed his robe. A layer of light flashed across his body and dispersed the smell of wine on his body. Ling Shuang and Qin Naxian responded and helped Wanyan Qianhua out. Chapter 33:51. Fengjiu, who was about to go out, stopped when she heard Leng Hua's voice. She looked back and said, Yes, I'm going out for a while. If Say asks, tell him I'll be back later. Okay. Leng Hua didn't leave. Instead, he watched her turn and leave. Then he walked inside and happened to see Ling Shuang and Qin Naxian walking side by side. He walked up to them. Sister. Leng Hua called. Yes, what's the matter? Ling Shuang looked at him and asked. Today, only Luo Yu is guarding Hao outside. I wanted to let Guimo go, but he hasn't come back yet. I was thinking, sister, do you want to see Hao tonight? Hearing this, Ling Shuang nodded. Okay. She was also a little worried about Hao being outside. Would he be afraid at night? Leng Hua smiled and told her where Luo Yu was. After she left, he looked at Qin Naxian and asked, Miss Wanyan is asleep. Qin Naxian thought for a while and said, Yes, she's drunk. Master said she should rest well and not be disturbed. Okay, then tell the servants not to disturb her rest. As he spoke, he lowered his voice and said, Pay more attention to Elder Mei and the gatekeeper. Master said that the Black Tortoise True Monarch should be paying us a visit soon. Okay. Qin Naxian also agreed. After a while, the two left. As the night deepened, the noises seemed to become quieter. In the celestial sect of the Blue Star, in a courtyard on a mountain, there was a bright room. Junju Shang was wearing a white robe and sitting in the room. He was holding a book in his hand and looking at the book. However, his mind was somewhere else. Feng Zhou, who was dressed in red, quietly landed on a tree in the courtyard. She had restrained her aura and was like a gust of night wind. She did not make any sound and naturally did not attract the attention of the absent-minded Junju Shang. Feng Zhou looked through the window at the man who was sitting and reading. When she saw him, she was stunned. He was hundreds of years old, but he looked like a man in his 30s. He was calm and cold. His temperament was different from the people she had seen before. Just by looking at the side of his face and his temperament, it had to be said that her sister's taste was indeed excellent. This kind of man was very unique and also very tasteful. Of course, in her opinion, he still couldn't compare to the one in her family. As the saying goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Jun Juesheng, who was looking at the book, suddenly felt that someone was looking at him. Even if he didn't sense the other party's aura, he could feel the other party's gaze at this moment. Therefore, he, who was reading the book, picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea. Suddenly, the teacup in his hand carried a fierce hidden force. It was like a hidden weapon, flying towards the window and towards the tree outside. Whoosh! The teacup flew past, creating a stream of air. Feng Zhou, who was staring at Jun Juesheng, suddenly saw the teacup flying towards her. She couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. She raised her hand and slightly tilted her body to reduce the force on the teacup. Then, she reached out and caught the teacup. The moment the teacup flew out, Jun Jueshang's heart skipped a beat. That was because he saw the red robe of the person hiding in the tree. When he saw the red robe, he immediately thought of Wanyan Qianhua. Chapter 3352. However, when that silhouette jumped down from the tree and entered his line of sight, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. It wasn't her. Feng Jiu held the cup in her hand and gently twirled it. She looked at Jun Jueshang, who slowly closed his eyes after seeing her. She couldn't help but curl her lips into a smile. It seemed like he had mistaken her for her elder sister. Both of them liked to wear red clothes. No wonder he had mistaken her for her elder sister. She smiled and slowly walked inside with a cup in her hand. Feng Jiu. Jun Jueshang looked at the woman who had walked in and asked with an indifferent expression. Even though he had asked that question, he looked confident. Obviously, even though he hadn't seen Feng Jiu before, he had guessed her identity. It's me. Feng Jiu smiled and nodded. She casually walked forward and sat down. She put the cup on the table and said, I have heard that the Xiaoyao sect's Jun Jueshang is extraordinary. Today, I see you in person. Indeed, hearing 100 times is not as good as seeing you once. You came to see me in the middle of the night. What's the matter? Asked Jun Jueshang. He put down the book in his hand and calmly looked at the girl in front of him. Feng Jiu, the ghost doctor's name, could be said to have spread all over the world. However, he didn't have any relationship with her. Therefore, he was surprised to see her in the middle of the night. Feng Jiu took out a teacup and poured herself a cup of water to drink as she said, It's nothing. I just heard that you were here, so I wanted to come and see you. As she spoke, she played with the cup in her hand and smiled. Sect Master, you don't know, right? Wanyan Qianhua and I are sworn sisters. Jun Jueshang's eyes twinkled when he heard that. He closed his eyes and didn't say anything. I don't like to talk in a roundabout way. I will just say it. She looked at him and said, My elder sister's taste is very high. There are so many outstanding men, but none of them can move her heart. I have always been curious. What kind of man will she fall in love with in the future? I didn't think that the patriarch would be like that. Did she ask you to come? Jun Jueshang asked. Hearing this, Feng Jiu sneered and glanced at him. 5 years ago, my sister mentioned you to me. When we met again 5 years later, I asked about you, but my sister said that the two of you had nothing to do with each other 5 years ago. So, when I heard that the sect master was in this sect, I thought that since I had nothing to do, I would like to see what kind of person this man that my sister fell in love with is. But now that I've seen him, I feel that he's just a so-so. She had originally wanted to see what kind of person Jun Jueshang was and what kind of feelings he had for her sister. However, when she heard his question, she shook her head inwardly. It seemed that this person really didn't care about her sister. Otherwise, why would he ask such a question? How could someone as proud as Wanyan Qianhua ask her to come? However, according to her observation from the beginning until now, she felt that he didn't completely ignore her sister in his heart. She guessed that he didn't realize the different feelings he had for her, right? It was also true that an old man who only knew how to cultivate, if you asked him to say or admit that he was moved by Wanyan Qianhua, it really wouldn't be so easy. Not to mention other things, just the age of these two people was like a mountain between them. Chapter 3353. It's late. The ghost doctor should be going back, Jun Jueshang said indifferently, as if he hadn't heard Feng Jiu. His expression was as indifferent as before. Feng Jiu smiled and glanced at him, saying, Yes, I'm going back. I just came here to take a look out of curiosity. She stood up, flicked her robe, and walked out. However, when she reached the door, she paused and looked back at Jun Jueshang. Oh, right. Sect Master doesn't seem to be in a good state. He must have encountered his inner demon. It's better to get rid of it as soon as possible. If you keep running away, it will only make it harder to control. With that, she tapped the ground with the tip of her foot, and her red figure flew into the night. Seeing her leave, Jun Ju Shang's eyes darkened. He reached out and touched his chest. There was a complicated and struggling look in his eyes. Since 5 years ago, there had been no peace in this place. He was originally a light sleeper, but gradually, he couldn't fall asleep. He knew that his inner demon had formed and could no longer be ignored. On the other side, after Fengjiu left Jun Ju Shang's place, CK and Mu Axian, who were waiting outside, saw her come out and greeted her. Master, it's already so late. Why don't you rest in the sect tonight? Master's cave residence has always been cleaned. You can move in at any time. CK said. Because it was so late, although she was very strong, they still felt that it wouldn't be too late for her to go down the mountain tomorrow morning. As for this, they didn't have to worry about her going back to Four Corners City in the middle of the night. Fengjiu shook her head, saying, no need. I told them that I would go back tonight. It's not suitable for me to stay here. I don't want my family to worry. She looked at the two and said, you two go back too. There's no need to send me off. I can go out by myself. Then, she smiled, don't worry. I won't meet any danger. Even if there is, it will be danger that meets me. When they heard this, CK and Mu Axian exchanged glances and said, since Master has spoken in this way, then let's send Master out of the sect. If you send me off, the entire sect will probably know that I came at night tomorrow. Who knows what kind of trouble might happen. She smiled and waved her hand. All right, let's go back. As she spoke, her figure flashed and she had already flown into the night. CK couldn't help but sigh as he watched the figure disappear into the night in the blink of an eye. Master really comes and goes without a trace. There aren't many people in this world who can fight with her. Yes. Both masters are very powerful. If it weren't for that bet, we wouldn't even be able to get close to her now, let alone be where we are today. Mu Axian also sighed. She only felt that many times, a split-second decision could change a person's life. The two of them stood there for a while before leaving as well. On the other side, Fengjiu, who had left the sect, was flying in the night. Her red figure was like a ghost as she shuttled through the darkness of the night, heading towards Four Corners City. However, just as she was about to leave the boundary of the sect, she unexpectedly noticed a few figures flitting through the forest. Their auras were actually demonic cultivators.